Lord Lucan, the aristocrat who murdered and vanished. The night of November 7th, 1974, began like any other in Belgravia, one of London's wealthiest neighbourhoods. By morning, a nanny was dead, a countess was covered in blood, and one of Britain's most privileged men had vanished into thin air. 50 years later, Lord Lucan has never been found. This is the story of murder, aristocracy, and the greatest disappearing act in British history. Richard John Bingham, the 7th Earl of Lucan, was born into everything: money, title, connections. Eton educated, Coldstream Guards officer, member of the most exclusive clubs in London. He married Veronica Duncan in 1963, and for a while, it looked perfect. 3 children, a townhouse in Belgravia, a life most people could only dream of. But beneath the surface, things were falling apart. Lucan had one obsession: gambling. He spent his nights at the Claremont Club, a private casino in Mayfair where aristocrats played chemin de fer for stakes that could ruin families. And Lucan was losing, badly. Tens of thousands of pounds gone. His marriage collapsed under the weight of his addiction and distemper. By 1973, Veronica had left him, taking the children. The courts gave her custody. Lucan was furious. He believed his wife was unfit, that she was mentally unstable, that the children should be his. He hired private investigators to follow her, hoping to find evidence. He found nothing. His money was running out, his title meant less every day, and his rage was growing. On the evening of November 7, 1974, Sandra Rivet was working as a nanny for the Lucan family. She lived in the basement of the Belgravia townhouse with Lady Lucan and the 3 children. It was supposed to be her night off, but she had swapped shifts. At around 9 p.m, Sandra went downstairs to make tea. She never came back. Lady Veronica, worried, went down to check. The basement was dark. The light bulb had been removed. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, someone attacked her from the shadows. A lead pipe smashed into her head again and again. She screamed, she fought, and then she recognized the voice of her attacker. It was her husband. What happened next is one of the strangest moments in this entire story. Lucan stopped. He told Veronica that Sandra was dead, that he had killed her by mistake, that he thought it was Veronica in the dark. They went upstairs. He got towels for her bleeding head. They talked. And then, in a moment of either desperation or calculation, Veronica ran. She burst out of the front door covered in blood and stumbled into a pub called the Plumber's Arms. She was hysterical, repeating the same thing over and over. Police arrived at 46 Lower Belgrave Street within minutes. In the basement, they found Sandra Rivet's body stuffed into a canvas mail sack. She had been bludgeoned to death with a lead pipe, which was found nearby, bent from the force of the blows. Blood was everywhere. Upstairs, the children were safe but terrified, and Lord Lucan was gone. The biggest manhunt in British history was about to begin. That same night, just after 10 p.m, Lucan drove to the house of his friends Ian and Susan Maxwell Scott in Uckfield, Sussex, about 40 miles south of London. Susan was home alone. Lucan was calm, almost eerily so. He told her a story. He said he had been walking past his old house when he saw a fight through the basement window. He ran in to help Veronica, but the attacker escaped. Veronica was hysterical and blamed him. Realizing how bad it looked, he panicked and ran. It was nonsense, and he must have known she did not believe him. But he stayed composed. He wrote 2 letters to his brother-in-law, protesting his innocence, saying the situation had been exaggerated. Then he left, driving away into the night in a borrowed Ford Corsair. He was never seen again. 3 days later, police found the car. It was parked in New Haven, a port town on the south coast. Inside were more bloodstains, a piece of lead pipe, and all of Lucan's personal belongings. New Haven has a ferry to France. Did he take it? No ticket was ever found in his name, but a man matching his description was reportedly seen on the docks. If he got on that boat, he could have been in mainland Europe within hours. If he did, he vanished without a trace. The inquest into Sandra Rivet's death took place in June 1975. In a decision that would be impossible today, the jury named Lord Lucan as her murderer. He was not there to defend himself, he had no lawyer present, but British law at the time allowed it. Lucan was officially a killer. And still, nobody knew where he was. Theories exploded. Some said he killed himself, weighed down by guilt or shame, his body somewhere in the English Channel, or buried in the woods. Others said his aristocratic friends helped him escape, smuggling him out of the country to protect one of their own. There were reported sightings everywhere. Africa, Australia, India, New Zealand. A man who looked like Lucan living as a hippie in Goa, another working as a waiter in Perth. None of them were real. One of the most enduring theories involves John Aspinall, the founder of the Claremont Club and one of Lucan's closest friends. Aspinall was wealthy, powerful, and fiercely loyal to his circle. Some believe he orchestrated Lucan's escape, perhaps flying him out on a private plane, setting him up with money and a new identity. Others think Aspinall and his friends helped Lucan kill himself to avoid the shame of a trial, then disposed of the body. Aspinall himself hinted at this in later interviews, saying he would have helped Lucan if asked, and suggesting that suicide was the most likely outcome, but he never admitted to anything concrete. In 1999, the High Court declared Lucan legally dead, so his son could inherit the title, but no body had been found. No evidence of his death existed. It was just a legal formality. The mystery continued that in 2004, DNA testing was conducted on a stain found in the car. It matched Sandra Rivet's blood. Lucan's guilt was confirmed beyond doubt. But where was he? In 2012, a man named Roger Woodgate claimed on his deathbed that Lucan had died in 1974, shortly after the murder, and that his body had been fed to tigers at Aspinall's private zoo. It sounds absurd, but Aspinall did own a zoo, and tigers do not leave evidence. The claim was never proven. Then, in 2016, a breakthrough. Or was it? A death certificate was issued for Lord Lucan, officially recording his death as occurring in 1974, cause unknown. His son George Bingham had applied for it, wanting to finally inherit his father's title without the legal limbo. But still, no body, no grave. Just paperwork. To this day, people claim to have seen him. In 2017, a British investigative journalist tracked down a man living in Australia who looked remarkably like Lucan. He denied it. DNA was never tested. In 2020, another claim emerged that Lucan had lived quietly in Africa, dying there in the 1990s. Again, no proof. The truth is, Lord Lucan probably died in 1974, shortly after murdering Sandra Rivet. Whether by his own hand or with the help of his friends, he likely ended his life rather than face justice. The most common theory is that he drove to the coast, walked into the sea and drowned. His body was never recovered because the English Channel does not always give up its dead, but the lack of a body means we will never know for certain, and that uncertainty is what keeps this story alive. Sandra Rivet, the 29-year-old nanny who died that night, is often forgotten in all of this. She was not supposed to be working. It was her night off. She swapped shifts with a colleague. If she had not, she would have lived. Instead, she became the victim of a man who mistook her for his wife in the dark. Her family never got justice. No trial, no conviction in a courtroom. just an inquest that named a man who was not there to answer for what he had done. Lady Veronica Lucan lived the rest of her life as a recluse, traumatized by the attack and the media circus that followed. She gave few interviews, always maintaining that her husband had tried to kill her. She died in 2017, taking her memories of that night with her. The Lucan children grew up under the shadow of their father's crime, their lives defined by a man they barely knew. 50 years later, the case remains one of Britain's greatest unsolved mysteries. Not because we do not know what happened that night in Belgravia, we do. Lord Lucan murdered Sandra Rivet and tried to murder his wife. The mystery is what happened after. Did he die within days, his body lost to the sea? Did he live for years in hiding, protected by wealth and privilege? Or is he still out there somewhere, an old man living under a false name, haunted by what he did? The answer most likely is that he is long dead. But without a body, without closure, the legend of Lord Lucan endures. The aristocrat who killed and vanished. The man who thought his title and his friends would save him. The gambler who bet everything and lost. If you remember the murder, the escape, and the 50 years of searching, you remember the night Britain's elite showed the world that privilege cannot outrun guilt forever. The case of Lord Lucan remains open. If you have information, you can still contact the Metropolitan Police. This video is dedicated to Sandra Rivet, who deserved justice.